cities every single day. And of course, our antitrust division with Google, major settlement. Our attorneys are working on terrorism, TDA, MS-13, Antifa, President Trump. We've charged more than 500 defendants with assault on federal officers thanks to your directive. And also, we have dropped countless cases against Americans that were prosecuted under the Biden administration, including J6, COVID, FACE Act, and more. And as everyone knows, we cannot talk about pending grand jury investigations, but no one is above the law, and that includes what happened in Arctic frost. I hope everyone has a very Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and Happy Holidays. Thank you for fighting for our country.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Please.
Great. Well, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for allowing me to be at this table. When I came on board, I knew really none of you in this last year, and it's been a year, Mr. President, since I've had the pleasure to serve this country on the workforce. Everybody said the Department of Labor would be quiet, fly under the radar, you won't have to do too much. Absolutely not, because you made the American people realize the American dream is real for the American workforce. And it's been under your leadership, Mr. President, that over 2 million jobs that has been created since you started have been native-born workers. And that is the difference between this presidency, this administration, as opposed to the Biden administration, where mostly foreign-born or federal government jobs. And I think through the private sector, over 2 million jobs of native-born. And so the Labor Department has wasted no time in putting that into action with our Make America Skilled Again, either grant dollars, but the intentionality of the apprenticeship program, 1 million active apprentices across this country. We have done over 250,000 new apprentices so far in the first year and registered over 2,000 new apprenticeship programs. Why do we need the apprenticeship programs with the men and women in the trades? Because of the leadership of onshoring and reshoring, and have a lot of these companies reinvest in America. We have to build this country. We cannot do that without the tradesmen and women and the craftsmen of this country. And I think that, you know, Howard and I, we talked about that from the beginning, and we're going to have to lean in on that because we need the labor force, 700,000 new skilled jobs with electricians, construction workers, machinists, and so forth. And as I traveled with the Vice President as well, we see that on the manufacturing floors of this country, they're in desperate need. The Department of Labor are going to get the workforce skilled again. Working with Secretary McMahon as we move a lot of the education out to our respective states, we are now working together, and we have deployed $86 million in investments, and a lot of that is in AI infrastructure jobs to have our new workforce proficient and literate in AI if we're going to continue to lead the AI race, and we're working on that. And the Department of Labor is now creating and will soon launch the AI infrastructure and workforce hub, which we will be able to track that metrics to see exactly if these dollars are going correctly. Integrating education and workforce with, obviously, Administrator Loeffler and I are on the road a lot together because we're talking about Main Street as well as a lot of the manufacturing jobs, and how we're being an ally to our businesses as opposed to an adversary. For far too long under the Biden administration, we were adversaries to our business owners, and we want to give them a leg up always and make sure that we're paying attention. And we want our workforce to be educated. We do not need the numbers that we have seen across this country where our 4th through 8th graders cannot do read, write, or do any math, and they are our future workforce. We have to depend on the American worker first. Also, lowering healthcare costs in line with the executive order. I'm working with Treasury and HHS, and rulemaking is underway to expand healthcare transparency and make pricing more affordable for our employers who offer these to their employees. Promoting retirement security. The department rescinded the Biden administration's guidance that restricted the use of crypto in the retirement investments, and we're seeing more and more of that, where we also rescinded the supplemental statement that discouraged the fiduciaries from considering the alternative assets for 401ks, and that will also come through the Department of Labor, that rulemaking. Ending abuse of cheap foreign labor at the expense of the American worker. We launched over 200 investigations into companies who will have abused and or fraudulently against the American worker. So Project Firewall was released. Thank you, Mr. President. We want the trained workforce, but we will root out the fraud and abuse, and we'll protect the American worker first. And slashing the job-killing regulations. The department has rescinded discriminatory DEI practices, and I will tell you, reducing compliance costs for businesses as it was for DEI has saved American businesses nearly $1 billion this year by just getting rid of DEI for that compliance cost that they've had to do. So, Mr. President, continuing to skill the American worker, the American workforce is going to be my mission. We have to do it faster. We have to do it quicker. We have to build so that the American people can realize that American dream that you have laid out so eloquently. And it's an honor to serve under this administration and to talk to the American workers who believe in the American dream again, the pride on their face, the pride of the American worker, the skilled men and women who build with their hands. It's an honor. So thank you, and Merry Christmas.
Very good job. Thank you very much. Chris?
Mr. President, I am honored and frankly inspired to sit at this table with this incredible team of leaders that work every day for one and only one constituency, the American people. Not this group or that group, the American people. The price of energy that's very much on the mind of Americans. The biggest determinant of the price of energy is politicians, political leaders, and policies. That's what drives energy prices. Under your leadership, what we've seen in the United States is just a steady drop in the price of gasoline, a huge consumer cost for Americans. As you mentioned early on, well below $3 a gallon right now and trending downwards. There are a number of stations in the heartland of America with $1.99 signs flying today. That's simply impossible without the leadership and changes you've brought. Now, of course, you can go to California, where the average price of gasoline is between $4.50 and $5 a gallon today in California. That's just bad political leaders there and bad policies in California.
And taxes.
And taxes.
Taxes they charge on gasoline are just insane. Terrible.
And electricity prices is a very parallel story, but it's a bigger moving ship, so the changes are a little bit slower. But Americans are outraged at a roughly 30% rise in the average price of electricity across this country. But everything we are doing together is going to reverse that. Not just stop the rises, but start a downward trajectory in electricity prices. And I can say that with confidence, not because we think these policies will work. We know these policies will work, and I'll get to that in a second. We're going to stop closing power plants. We've already done that, of course. Stop closing the coal power plants and natural gas plants that were shut down. We've got over 30 gigawatts of generators just sitting there today, not allowed to run. Well, of course, we're fixing that immediately. We're going to bring on from our existing grid tens of gigawatts more capacity that'll drive down the cost of electricity. But if we look at the last 5 years to see what works and what doesn't work, the most Trump-aligned policies in the electricity sector were by, no surprise, one of your cabinet members, Secretary Burgum, for 8 years governor of North Dakota. Over the last 5 years, production and demand for electricity in North Dakota grew 35%. Think what data center boom's going to do. And what happened? Electricity prices went down. Didn't rise slowly. They actually went down those 5 years. That's the answer. Trump-aligned energy policies increased demand for electricity. Nebraska and Texas, more Trump-aligned states, had significant growth in demand for electricity. They had electricity price rises, but well below the price of inflation. Unfortunately, Biden brought all of us a lot of inflation. If you look at the other end of the spectrum, California, New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Maryland, I could go on. What happened in those states? Policies and politicians that force the building of unreliable electricity generation, which requires new infrastructure and transmission lines. And what happened? Today they produce less electricity than they did 5 years ago. A lot of spending money and less electricity. What does that mean? Of course, much faster rises in the price of electricity. Blue states have had 1.5 times faster rise in electricity prices than red states. Red states alone, less than inflation. We need to bring those policies. You are bringing those policies to the national level. We hope the blue states will come along with us, but your policies are going to start the decline of electricity prices nationwide under your leadership by just bringing back common sense. So thank you for allowing me to be part of this team. For people here who are focused on winning, special thanks to Howard and Scotty who were there with me to see the Denver Broncos win on Monday night. Now we want nationwide wins on energy for 3 more years.
And we're doing more energy production than we've ever done by far right now.
Records across the board that will continue to be reset every year you're in office.
Thank you very much.
Well, Mr. President, thank you for giving me a very interesting job. Some days it's a little controversial too, but it's been an honor to work for you. You are a great American. The fights that you pick are the right fights, and they're always on behalf of this country. So I appreciate the chance to do this job heading up this department. If you think about what Joe Biden did with the Department of Homeland Security, he used this department to invade the country with terrorists. He opened up the borders, let anybody come in that wanted to. He put them on airplanes. He let them through our airports. If they could figure out a way to get to our shores and in our country, he just opened the door and invited them in. So it's our job to get them out. And I want to thank you for this team, because I look around the table and I think every single person here has helped me do my job over the last year. They've supported us at the border and given us resources. Marco negotiates all the travel documents and relationships with other countries to take their people home. 2 million people have gone home already. The people that were here illegally, you've removed from our country and sent home. And we're going to send more home for the holidays too, and make sure that they get to be with their families in their countries. Yes.
Mostly the bad ones.
That's right.
Focus is the bad ones.
That's right.
And there are a lot of them.
Terrible, horrible people. And Pam makes sure she's fighting for us in court so that we can get up every day and be bold. We're going to hire our 10,000th ICE officer. Will be on the job within 10 days. So we have hired 10,000. We've had hundreds of thousands of applications. We've got within the department, TSA went through this government shutdown without any delays. They all showed up for their shifts and worked hard doing security. And they have been absolutely fantastic. Sir, you made it through hurricane season without a hurricane.
Yeah.
And so FEMA, you kept the hurricanes away. So we appreciate that. And FEMA is deploying resources and dollars 150% faster than ever before. So if somebody does have something bad that happens to them, you are immediately there helping them and telling them they have the resources to get back up on their feet. So we have built and deployed hundreds of miles of border already. You have cut the fentanyl flow over the southern border by over 56%. You've saved hundreds of millions of lives with the cocaine you've blown up in the Caribbean. And you told me to look into Minnesota and their fraud on visas and their programs. 50% of them are fraudulent, which means that wacko Governor Walz either is an idiot or he did it on purpose. And I think he's both, sir. He brought people in there illegally that never should have been in this country, said they were somebody that they're not. They said they were married to somebody who was their brother or somebody else. Fraudulent visa applications, signed up for government programs, took hundreds of billions of dollars from the taxpayers, and we're going to remove them and we're going to get our money back. And we're going to, this next year, make sure that we only put people in leadership positions in this country that love this country and have its back. So thank you for letting us get up every day and have a purpose. We
Thank
appreciate
you very
it.
much. Thanks, Chrissy. Appreciate it.
Mr. President, you're exactly right. We are saving this country. We're doing it one Main Street at a time, and we're doing it at record speed and at record levels. Under your leadership, small business optimism, according to the U.S. Chamber Index for small businesses, has reached an all-time high in the history of that index. So on Main Street, the economy is coming back thanks to your leadership, thanks to getting Biden inflation under control. Small businesses' number one concern right now is finding skilled labor, and that's why Secretary Chavez DeRemer and I have entered into an MOU to speed that workforce to small businesses that under this administration are now at record levels. 36 million small businesses have now taken on board, for the first time in the SBA's history, $100 billion. That's $45 billion in small business lending at 85,000 small businesses. most of that under your term, and $52 billion out to small business investment companies. So we are running this agency like the best run bank in the country. We are growing small businesses across Main Street, and we're deregulating to the tune of $100 billion, working with all my fellow cabinet members. And thank you for putting together the best cabinet in history. Iron sharpens iron, and thank you for bringing such a strong leadership group together. And then finally, I've walked factory floors from Alaska to Maine, and the workers, the small businesses, most manufacturers in this country are small businesses, 600,000 of them. They are so grateful to your fair trade, low inflation, deregulation agenda that is creating national security and economic security in this country like never before. And so I want to also finally thank you for bringing faith back to the White House, to this administration. I want to thank Brooke for hosting the Cabinet Bible Study and invite everyone tomorrow to Bible study and making this country something that we can be so proud of under your leadership. And I am so blessed and honored to be part of this team. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President, for your leadership. I am truly grateful to be a member of your team here at this table to help support you in delivering on the promises that you made to the American people. You came in with a very clear mandate of taking on the rampant weaponization, politicization of the intelligence community and federal law enforcement, experiencing yourself, the deep state abusing their power as they have against you, your family, and so many of the American people. Bring out accountability truly for those who have abused their power, making sure that the intelligence community is supporting your efforts in keeping the American people safe, secure, and free, and being the president of peace. I'm grateful to be in this position as your Director of National Intelligence to support you in these efforts, and I'll cover very briefly what we've done over the last year under your leadership and what we look forward to continuing to focus on next year. First of all, under your leadership, again, we've taken on a historic effort for transparency, declassification, and exposing these abuses of power by these deep state actors. We've declassified over 500,000 documents, many of which had never been seen before by the American people, put them online to bring about this level of transparency. We formed a weaponization working group, again, to be able to go after a lot of these abuses of power that have never seen the light of day, to support the accountability that under Pam Bondi's leadership in the Department of Justice is coming about. Secondly, bring about reforms to the intelligence community to make sure that we have the most effective and efficient and focused workforce that's really working on bringing about the priorities you have laid out in ensuring our country's security. And lastly, Mr. President, working with many of our partners here around the table is going after these domestic threats. We have threats coming from both Islamist ideology as well as Islamist terrorists, foreign terrorist organizations, and those who seek to do harm to the American people, many of whom were let in across our borders under the previous administration. We are focused on these tasks and this imperative for the American people, and just appreciate your leadership, Mr. President, in empowering us to be able to conduct this service. Merry Christmas.
Thank you very much. Merry Christmas. That's right. Merry Christmas. Say it loud and clear. Lee?
Mr. President, your team at the Trump EPA has been crushing it all year to fix the big mess that we inherited and deliver amazing results for the American people. I've had the opportunity to visit all 50 states since confirmation earlier this year, and to hear from real people where they meet, where they live, and to bring their great ideas and their asks back to us to be able to deliver for them. At the Trump EPA, we have proven that you can both protect the environment and grow the economy. On the environmental front, since you were sworn in earlier this year, we have averaged a big environmental accomplishment every single day. On the 100th day, the 200th day, the 300th day of your presidency, each time we released a list of our top 100 environmental accomplishments. That has included a historic LA wildfire cleanup that you ordered us to complete in record time, which we did, and the Army Corps, under the leadership of our great Secretary of War, did their part as well. The federal government completely did all of the work needed to allow these residents and businesses to be able to rebuild, but poor leadership at the local and state level, unfortunately, is still resulting in these property owners unable to rebuild, and it's wrong. We also were able to reach an agreement with Mexico to be able to implement a plan to permanently end a decades-old raw sewage crisis on the southern border with Mexico. And Secretary Rubio and his team, Chris Landau, Ambassador Johnson, they've been amazing to get that done. On the deregulatory front, we have proudly launched a massive blitz that amounts to the largest deregulatory effort by any agency in the history of the United States. To put some perspective on it, in 1 year, at one agency, we will do more deregulation than entire presidencies have done across all agencies. It's incredible. You could go back across 4-year terms, 8-year terms, you've never seen this much deregulation. One agency, 1 year. In fact, when finalized, the proposed rescission of the 2009 Obama EPA endangerment finding amounts to the largest deregulatory action in the history of the United States of America. From fixing the agency's definition of waters of the United States, which is important for our farmers, our ranchers, and other landowners, to the effort to end electric vehicle mandates and promote consumer choice, eliminating regulations designed to eliminate entire sectors of our energy economy. We're thinking big and we're delivering big. We have reduced terrible derailments on diesel exhaust fluid systems. We're getting water moving faster, new pipelines and power plants built, and we're helping to unleash energy dominance. Mr. President, on the operational front, we have significantly reduced the size of the agency workforce, and we are accomplishing more with less. It's all about priorities, and our focus is on fulfilling our statutory obligations, helping to fast-track project approvals that were taking way too long, and closely following the law, as well as key Supreme Court decisions like Loper-Bright to overturn the Chevron doctrine. We inherited massive backlogs that we've been eliminating all year long. We've been implementing your executive order to end COVID-era remote work. We consolidated real estate, canceled expensive media subscriptions, and closed a Biden EPA museum that none of you knew even existed. I'm sure none of you actually visited. To put it another way, in 2024, the Biden EPA obligated and spent over $60 billion in 1 year, an agency with an operational budget of about $10 billion a year. In their own words, caught on camera, they were tossing gold bars off the Titanic, wasting precious tax dollars to pay off well-connected Obama and Biden officials. And they were doing it without any apology or regret. The Biden EPA, in fact, was amending grant agreements just days before you came into office to reduce agency oversight. But this year, 2025, at the Trump EPA, similar theme that you'll hear from everyone around this table. With our actions canceling wasteful grants and implementing other measures just mentioned, we have saved $30 billion. They spent over $60 billion. We have saved over $30 billion. The bottom line, by the way, is that the Green New scam is dead. It's a new day at the EPA where we will protect the environment and grow the economy. We will deliver on the Trump mandate every day. And we will fight with just one constituency front of mind, and that is the American people. Thank you, Mr. President, for being willing to take a bullet for this country. And if you were to ask me what I'm grateful for, whether it's a Thanksgiving, it's a Christmas, a Hanukkah, a New Year's, any time of year, the fact that this president, after 4 years serving in office, he could have just left it in the rearview mirror and went on to really enjoy retirement. But he is willing to take a bullet for all of you tuning in at home because he believes in this flag, our freedom, our liberties, and to save the greatest country in the history of the world. So I'm grateful this holiday season for you, Mr. President. You're willing to take a bullet for all of us, and by all of us, it's the American public.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. President, good morning, everyone. Well, in spite of the fact that your charge to me is to fire myself, we've really been incredibly hard at work making sure that we can return education to the states. And as I sit and listen to all the emergencies that we are addressing in this country, from the economy to our borders to everything that we're doing, I would say, sir, that if we do not fix education in our country with this hard reset that you are expecting, I think the greatest national emergency we could face is our education. Because if we are not going to educate our children, we're going to continue to fall behind the rest of the world. When there are only 30% of 12th graders, 8th graders, and 4th graders that can read at proficiency level, that is an incredibly harsh statement to make about our country. And you told me when you first were elected president, and you looked at, I think, right after you took office, the first NAEP scores, which is Nations Report Card, came out and showed how far down we were in educational proficiency in our country. And not only the NAEP scores, but the international scores as well showed us about third from the bottom. You told me you were not only embarrassed, but you were angry about this, and that we had to do something to change this in our country. And we took a hard look at it, and you absolutely said the bureaucracy of education in Washington is keeping its thumb on preventing growth what we should have, because it's best handled at the state level. Letting states put their programs in place, and some states are going to do it a lot better than others. But it's not going to happen from Washington, D.C. And when I hear things like, well, with no disrespect to any other country in the world that have really great programs, Germany, Sweden, Norway, we hear about this all the time. Point of fact is, they're this big. The United States is this big. We can't do it from Washington, D.C. It has to be done at the state level. So what we've been doing, as Lori brought up, Secretary of Labor brought up, we have a great working relationship. We have already signed and implemented one MOU or interagency agreement to handle the WIOA program and the Perkins grants to make sure it works. I call these, these are programs, pilot programs that we're putting out there. And if these are going to work, we will be able to permanently transfer these programs to other agencies. They're working like a charm. We've taken some of our best people in education. It still operates under the budget of the Department of Education and under the management of the Department of Education, but working with Lori's personnel. And when I hear pushback on that to say, well, how can this possibly work to take education and put it in labor? Let's be efficient. One example, in order to draw down on a lot of the grants that they are helping us with, we're using their grant system. The grant system at the Department of Education is like held together with bubble gum and rubber bands. Mm-hmm. And it did not interact with any other agency. Now, we have this really smooth operation already in labor. So that has prompted us to sign also other interagency agreements, 2 more with labor, 1 with HHM in the state, and we'll be moving other programs, but these are proof of concept. Let's make sure they're working and working smoothly before we ask Congress to codify these permanent moves. So that's kind of in the world of K through 12, what we're looking at right now, but in the world of higher education, as Attorney General Bondi mentioned, we've been working really very hard to make sure that we've got anti-Semitism and DEI out of our universities, and put some pretty stiff fines on, worked some good deals. I've enjoyed working with Harmeet, who is just an incredible negotiator. So we're bringing all of that to bear as well. So I can say, sir, that we are moving to return education to the states and to bring the level of education back up, making sure our students can read, by reintroducing the science of reading in schools. And going into next year, I can honestly say we've got a lean, mean machine operating at the Department of Education. It's only half the workforce when we started, and we're more efficient, and I think we're going to see better results as we move into next year. So thank you for this incredible opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President, during this holiday season for empowering us at HHS, me, Dr. McCary, Jay Bhattacharya, and Dr. Oz, to change the trajectory of this agency towards public health in a way the tradition of serving the mercantile interests of the medical industrial complex and the big pharmaceutical companies. 2 weeks ago, we ended, under your leadership, a 20-year war on women by removing the black box warnings from hormone replacement therapy. The medical cartel was telling women that hormone replacement therapy during menopause was dangerous for them. In fact, here's what the science said. It diminishes the risk of fatal heart attacks by 25%, cardiac disease by 50%, Alzheimer's by 35%, bone fractures by 50 to 60%. It improves appetite, it improves sleep, it improves energy, it improves happiness. There are tens of millions of women in this country who have been deprived of that therapy because of just scientific malpractice by the medical cartel. We are now remedying that, and this remedy will now be available to all women who want it during one of the most difficult transitions of their lives. MFN is one of our greatest accomplishments. It would not have happened without you. You were the only person who believed in it. You drove us to get it done. We've now made agreements with the 5 biggest pharmaceutical companies. We have 12 more in the lineup to make agreements. By the time this administration leaves office, 95% of the drugs in this country we will have the lowest prices of any nation in the developed world. Americans are already getting the benefits from these. These companies are already lowering these prices dramatically, as you've noticed. And then this week, Howard at Department of Commerce and Jameson at the U.S. Trade Representative made a bargain with Great Britain to raise their prices in conformance with your promise that the Europeans would raise theirs to counterbalance us lowering ours, and therefore we would keep intact the ecosystem of innovation and protect innovation. So congratulations on that, Mr. President. When you first asked me to take this job, one of the first contacts we made was with a leading economics professor, health economics professor at Harvard. And we asked him what's the one innovation that we could do that would most dramatically improve the health care experience for the average American. And he said there's no contest, it's to get rid of prior authorization. Thanks to your leadership, we were able to convene the largest insurance companies in this country and do something that every administration, every Congress has promised for the past 30 years. We actually got it done. We convened the insurance companies representing 280 million Americans and got them to agree, most of them by January of 2026, for 2 months from now, to remove prior authorization for most of their procedures, for all the procedures we want them removed from. And that means that American patients at the point of care will be able to get an answer immediately. If your doctor says you need knee surgery, you will know before you leave that doctor's office whether your insurance company will pay for it or not. Similarly, healthcare records, the tech industry has refused to share healthcare records. You asked us to change that. We convened the 60 biggest tech companies at a conference that you presided over about 2 months ago. We now did a secondary conference which 400 leading companies all come in and agreed to remove any kind of blockages where individual Americans can get their own health care. Americans own their health care records, yet they were not able to access them. And if you lived in New Jersey and you moved to Oregon and you got injured, you went to a hospital, you would have to spend maybe 45 minutes filling out forms on a clipboard because your doctors there could not get your healthcare records. They couldn't get your blood type, your allergies, all the things that they ought to know immediately so they can save your life. Now that has all changed, and all these companies now have agreed to remove all the blocks on sharing healthcare records. Every American will have their healthcare records available on their cell phones, and it's already happening. In the last 6 months, there have been over 100 times the number of healthcare records shared by hospitals and during the entire previous administration. On deregulation, HHS proudly is now leading the pack, and thank you for your help on that, Russ. But today we announced the revocation of the nursing home rule, which was overburdening rural areas across this country, Indian reservations, with regulations that were going to destroy the nursing home industry in those communities. And that is going to be a $25 billion savings. Those are some of the things that we're doing because of your leadership. President Trump, thank you so much, and Merry Christmas to you.
Thank you, Bobby, very much. Great job. Huh?
Well, Mr. President, you've assembled an incredibly talented group here. If you took a look at this group compared to any Fortune 500 leadership team, any group of startup folks, I mean, this is an amazing group and the breadth of what's being accomplished. And the timing couldn't be better because with your leadership and vision, you've set us up for this age of abundance as we head into next year, the 250th anniversary of this country. And what are we heading into that year? As we've talked around the table, you've heard about massively lower taxes, massively lower regulation, abundant energy, record capital investment coming in, job growth. I mean, we are set up to really have something to celebrate next year. And I just again want to say thank you to everybody around the table. You gave us one big assignment in Interior. Of course, Interior, the largest balance sheet in the world. In the Department of Interior, if it was a standalone company, 500 million acres of surface, 700 million acres of subsurface, over 3 billion of offshore from Guam to the Virgin Islands. And you said, we got to take care of that balance sheet, we got to develop those resources. And what have we done across that? Producing record amounts of oil, record amounts of gas. And again, we set out with a goal, energy diplomacy, sell energy to our friends and allies. We're exporting a record amount of energy to all of our friends and allies around the world. That's helping do that. And you're giving a gift to America as we head into this. You're giving us peace abroad, and you're giving us prosperity at home. That bodes so well for our country. One small little gift that we're giving to all Americans from one teeny part of Interior, which is the national parks, is that not only are we keeping prices low for all American citizens, offering 10 free days for our national parks next year to coincide with our holidays, but also a $100 surcharge for non-residents. That is going to raise hundreds of millions of dollars for helping restore and preserve all of our best parks. So as we close out then, I want to also say a big celebration going on here in Washington, D.C. We've been thrilled to be part of the National Park Service, the U.S. Park Police, part of this great effort across a number of us on making D.C. safe and beautiful. This will be the safest and most beautiful capital in the world. We are doing so many things, whether it's hundreds of homeless camps, thousands of graffiti sites, cleaning up ponds and fountains, preparing this thing. The United States is never going to be performing better economically. It's never going to be looking better, just like the White House has never looked better, all because of your vision and leadership. So again, thank you, sir. You've given an incredible Christmas gift to Americans by setting us up for an incredible 250th anniversary.
That's very nice. Thank you, Dad, very much. Marco?
Well, thank you, Mr. President. First of all, this is a very talented team, as you've seen, and as you know, because you picked every single one that's on. You deserve tremendous credit for doing that. It's an honor to be in this role. It's also an honor to be involved in and be a witness to what I believe is the most transformational year in American foreign policy since the end of the Second World War, at least. And it's transformational because for the first time in a long time, we have a president who basically puts America at the forefront of every decision we make in our relations with the world. And that may sound weird to people, like, of course you always do. No, that hasn't always been the case until about a year ago. And I think we've all witnessed in our own respective spaces how in every interaction the president has with the world, the goal he has in mind is very simple. Does what you want us to do, or is it what or is it going to make us stronger? Is it going to make us richer? Is it going to make us safer? If it is, he's for it. If it's not, he's against it. If something's going to make America weaker or poorer or less safe, the president's going to be against it. And every single thing he has done in our foreign policy has been driven by the American people in mind. And I can go down the list. Why has he focused on mass migration? It's very simple, because no country is safe if you can just walk in without us knowing who you are into your country. We've seen the destruction that that's wreaking, not just in our own country, but the impact that it's having in Europe and in many other parts of the world. You talk about trade deals and the trade situation it's been involved in. people, all this reporting on it. It's very simple. The president views the last 40 years as an era of which American workers and American farmers have been ripped off. They've been ripped off, and what he's saying is we want to have a trade with the world, but it has to be a trade in which American businesses and American workers and the products they make and what American farmers grow and produce has a fair shot to be sold around the world. On issue after issue, that's been the case. You talk about foreign aid reforms. This is not our money. This is taxpayer money. When the president has said we're going to do foreign aid, but we're going to do foreign aid for countries that are aligned with the United States and in a way that doesn't waste the taxpayers' money. Mr. President, you deserve tremendous credit for that. Many of us, the Vice President, by the way, I want to acknowledge, has played an extraordinary role in our foreign policy, and he too has been a witness to all of this as it's been occurring, and he's been a big part of it as well. You talk about NATO. The President's not against NATO. He went to NATO and basically said, look, you guys, we're paying all the money, and he got them to do the 5% commitment, which everybody said was never going to happen, it was impossible. Everything this president does is driven by the American people. Whether you don't have to agree with the actual move, but understand the motivation. The motivation is always you, the American people, and what's good for you, for your family, for the country, and for our economy. But the president is also committed to peace in a way that all of us have seen. He achieved in Gaza, and he does it, by the way, not just because he hates war and he thinks wars are a waste of money and lives, but because he's the only leader in the world that can. No other leader in the world could have pulled off what happened in Gaza. And I can tell you, I can't get into the details. The Vice President knows what I'm talking about. That deal doesn't happen without the president's direct interaction with the leaders that were involved in this decision making. And everyone said that deal couldn't hold. And then the president shepherded through the United Nations of all places to get a global coalition of countries to line up behind the peace deal, behind the border peace. And it's still, every day is a challenge, but it's been driven personally by the president. It's the reason why we're involved in this whole Ukraine-Russia conflict. That's not our war, it's not the president's war. This war started, it never would have happened if you'd been president. But this war is going on, and the president is trying to end it, not because, listen, we got a million things to focus on in the world as a country, but he's the only leader in the world that can help end it. And that's why even as we speak to you now, Steve Woodcock is in Moscow trying to find a way to end this war, to save lives of 9,000 people, Mr. President, as you know, are dying every week. More people are dying a week in that war than have died in the entirety of the U.S.'s involvement in Afghanistan or Iraq. Just think about that, how bloody and destructive it is. The president's taken on this issue of Sudan personally, not send out deputies to do it. Again, far away from the United States, because he's the only leader in the world that can bring it about to an end. Not to mention all the other peace deals, very dangerous ones like India and Pakistan, or Cambodia and Thailand. And so on all these things, Mr. President, I think you deserve tremendous credit for the transformational aspect of our foreign policy. For the first time in probably 4 decades, the American foreign policy is driven by what is good for America and Americans. Whether it makes us safer and stronger and more prosperous. If it is, he's for it. If it doesn't, he's against it. And that sort of clarity is transformational. I close with this, and I know I'm last, so I wanted to be fast, but there was a lot to cover. I do want to say this is the most wonderful and magical time of the year. By that, of course, I'm referring to the college football playoffs. And I just want to say this as a point of personal privilege. And I'm a Florida Gator, but if the University of Miami gets screwed out of the college football playoffs after going 10-2 and beating Notre Dame, the whole thing should be scrapped, and you're going to have to take over it next year.
That's great. Well, thank you all very much. As terrific. I hope it wasn't too long, but it was very concise, and we've done a lot. This group has done a lot. Amazing. Everybody at this table has done a fantastic. And Susie, thank you for doing a great job as our Chief of Staff. First female Chief of Staff in the history of our country, which is pretty amazing when you think of it, right? And she's the best. Thank you very much. Great job. So after that, do you want to ask any questions?
Mr. President, there's been a lot of speculation about who the next Fed chairman could possibly be. You said you have somebody in mind. How many names were you given on the final list? And does that person currently work on the board of Federal Reserve?
Well, I'd say that we probably looked at 10. Then Scott interviewed some people that I didn't know, but he knew. And a lot of people were involved in the process, actually, and Howard was involved. But I think we probably looked at 10, and we have it down to 1.
Can you answer this? I want to ask you about Elon Musk, if I could. You talked about Elon Musk. You had him in dinner here in the White House. Is he now back in your circle of friends?
Well, I really don't know. I mean, I like Elon a lot. He was a very, he really helped during the election with his endorsement. He felt strongly. Look, we had one problem. You know, I didn't want to have everybody have to have an electric car, and he makes electric cars. And yeah, I think we get along well.
You know, on affordability,
Mr. President, thank you.
Yeah, one more. Yeah, when you talk about affordability, is going forward, are the American people, do you believe, getting impatient with the reforms that you're making? They've talked about it's about.
I think they're getting fake news from guys like you. Look, affordability is a hoax that was started by Democrats who caused the problem of pricing, and they didn't end it. When, look, they lost in a landslide. We won every swing state. We won the popular vote. We won everything. You take a look at districts, it was 2,750 to 525. Because that was an affordability problem. We brought it down. Look at energy. Look at the gasoline price. It's like the simplest, and it's the biggest. Because if energy comes down, everything comes down. That's the way it works. We're going to be at 250. You said 199 in some places in the country, right? You said it. I didn't say it. And they won't check you. They'll check me. So, you know, I like to use your number. 199 a gallon. Unthinkable if you go back a year and a half ago. It's unthinkable. So now we're bringing the prices down, way down. Beef is coming down now. We've done certain magic and beef is coming down. But we inherited horrible prices. We inherited really the worst inflation in history. We inherited that. When I came in, that's what he had. And we fixed inflation. And we fixed almost everything, if you want to know the truth, including 8 wars. We got 1 to go, but including 8 wars. But when they always say, I watched today where they have a race going on right now in Tennessee, and this woman goes, affordability, affordability. They're the ones that caused the problem. The prices were way high. We're bringing the prices down. But they're like scam artists. You know, they're I call them con men and women. They come out, they say affordability, like, oh, I see price. We're going to get prices down still further. But we brought them down from the prices they cost. The reason that they had the highest inflation in the history of our country is because they had the highest prices. But we brought them down, and now we have normal inflation. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, thank you so much for taking questions with your assembled cabinet. I wanted to clarify something that you had said on Sunday regarding the boat strikes near Venezuela. You had said that you didn't know if the second strike on that one boat had happened, but you wouldn't have wanted it. Now that your administration has acknowledged that it happened, do you support that second strike? And Mr. Secretary, I wanted to clarify something you had said in an interview back in September, I believe on Fox News. You said that you would watch that strike live on television. In real time, did you know that there were survivors after the initial strike?
Well, look, all I know is this. Every boat that you see get blown up, we save 25,000 on average lives, 25,000 lives. They've been sending enough of this horrible fentanyl and other things like cocaine and other things, but fentanyl right now is the leader of the pack, to kill our entire nation. Because a little speck on the head of a pin can kill somebody. It's very dangerous stuff. I know so many people where their sons were drug addicts. They had one little sample, and they died. They died. They couldn't believe it. As far as the attack is concerned, I still haven't gotten a lot of information because I rely on Pete. But to me, it was an attack. It wasn't 1 strike, 2 strikes, 3 strikes. Somebody asked me a question about the second strike. I didn't know about the second strike. I didn't know anything about people. I wasn't involved in it. I knew they took out a boat. But I would say this, they had a strike. I hear the gentleman that was in charge of that is extraordinary. He's an extraordinary person. I'll let Pete speak about him. But Pete was satisfied. Pete didn't know about second attack having to do with 2 people. I guess Pete would have to speak to it. I can say this, I want those boats taken out. And if we have to, we'll attack on land also, just like we attack on sea. And there's very little coming in by sea. I think we've knocked out over 90% of it. There's very little, and I understand that. There's very little. We're saving hundreds of thousands of lives with those pinpoint attacks. It's an amazing thing when you see a boat going along, and a lot of the press would like to say they're not. You see the boat, they're not maybe drugs. You see these boats. First of all, who has 5 engines on the back of a boat going in weird directions and loaded up with lots of white containers? They're bags of things. No, they've done an amazing job, and Peter's done an amazing job. Pete, you could probably better answer the question.
No, you're spot on, sir. I think you got to start with the baseline, which Marco laid out, everybody's laid out. We've got 20 million people invading our country over 4 years. We don't know where they're coming from. That includes Tren de Aragua and cartels and violent criminals. They bring drugs, and you mentioned it, Mr. President, poisoning, an intentional poisoning of the American people, killing hundreds of thousands of Americans. So the president had the courage to designate these cartels as designated terrorist organizations. Now, a number of us here served in the military and spent 20 years fighting terrorists like Al-Qaeda and ISIS on the other side of the world. How do you treat Al-Qaeda and ISIS? Do you arrest them and treat them, pat them on the head and say, don't do that again? Or do you end the problem directly by taking a lethal, kinetic approach? And that's the way President Trump has authorized the War Department to look at these cartels. And I wish everybody could be in the room watching our professionals like Mitch Bradley, Admiral Mitch Bradley, and others at JSOC and SOCOM and other commanders. The deliberative process, the detail, the rigorous, the intel, the legal, the evidence-based way that we're able to, with sources and methods that we can't reveal here, that make sure that every one of those drug boats is tied to a designated terrorist organization. We know who's on it, what they're doing, what they're carrying. All these white bales are not Christmas gifts from Santa. This is drugs running on 4-motor fast boats or submarines that we've also struck. No one's fishing on a submarine. And I have empowered them to make that call. Now, the first couple of strikes, as you would, as any leader would want, you want to own that responsibility. So I said, I'm going to be the one to make the call after getting all the information and make sure it's the right strike. That was September 2nd. There's a lot of intelligence that goes into that, building that case and understanding that, a lot of people providing information. I watched that first strike live. As you can imagine, at the Department of War, we got a lot of things to do. So I didn't stick around for the hour and 2 hours, whatever. All the sensitive site exploitation digitally occurs. So I moved on to my next meeting. A couple of hours later, I learned that that commander had made which he had the complete authority to do, and by the way, Admiral Bradley made the correct decision to ultimately sink the boat and eliminate the threat. He sunk the boat, and eliminated the threat. And it was the right call. We have his back, and the American people are safer because narco-terrorists know you can't bring drugs through the water and eventually on land if necessary to the American people. We will eliminate that threat, and we're proud to do it.
So you didn't see any survivors, to be clear, after that first strike? You personally?
I did not personally see survivors, but I stand, because the thing was on fire. It was exploded and fire and smoke. You can't see anything. You got digital. This is called the fog of war. This is what you in the press don't understand. You sit in your air-conditioned offices or up on Capitol Hill and you nitpick and you plant fake stories in the Washington Post about kill everybody, phrases on anonymous sources not based in anything, not based in any truth at all. And then you want to throw out really irresponsible terms about American heroes, about the judgment that they made. I wrote a whole book on this topic because of what politicians and the press does to warfighters. President Trump has empowered commanders to do what is necessary, which is dark and difficult things in the dead of night on behalf of the American people. We support them, and we will stop the poisoning of the American people.
And Mr. Secretary, on the second strike, you said it happened more than an hour after the first. Did I hear it correctly?
I couldn't tell you the exact amount of time.
Minutes, or you had left the room, is what you're saying.
I already stated my answer quite clearly.
So remember this, we lost last year, I think it was more than that, but people don't like saying it because they always said 100,000, 115,000, numbers we've been hearing for years. So we lost last year more than 200,000 people, dead people, ruined families beyond the 200,000. And those 200,000, that family will never be the same. But these people have killed over 200,000 people, actually killed over 200,000 people last year. And those numbers are down. Those numbers are down. They're way down. And they're down because we're doing these strikes, and we're going to start doing those strikes on land too. The land is much easier. It's much easier. And we know the routes they take. We know everything about them. We know where they live. We know where the bad ones live, and we're going to start that very soon, too.
Mr. President, thank you so much, Mr.
And you
President.
know what, when we start that, we're going to drive those numbers down so low. And then you're going to have families be able to live without the fear of their son or daughter just having a pill to have a little fun and ending up dying within a period of 60 seconds, right? No, we're not going to let that happen. We're not going to let it continue to happen. What Biden did to this country by allowing all these people, and I call them animals in many cases, I think they're animals, to come into our country and destroy our country and let all those drugs pour in, let people just walk across the border like it was nothing. You look at them, a lot of them, you know, you say, oh, let's not discriminate. I'm not talking about color. I'm just talking about, you look into the eyes of some of these people, we're smart, and you see a killer. Come on in, just come on in. 11,888 murderers. Many of them committed more than one murder. He allowed them into our country, totally unvetted, totally unchecked. But he also allowed drugs to come in at record numbers. And hundreds of thousands of people a year died. And we're taking those son of a bitches out, yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. President, for taking our questions. I think this is the most transparent administration I have seen.
I'm impressed by these people that, I'll tell you, how strong are you? You've been holding it for 2 hours. You know, there are very few physically, there are very few people who could do that. I'm very proud of you. Whoever the hell you are, I have no idea who you are, but you're strong.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, last week, militia groups in Iraq attacked the Kurdistan region's gas field, the largest gas field, which even the U.S. companies invested in the energy sector in the Kurdistan region. And the Kurdistan Prime Minister requested the United States to provide them some sorts of means and defense system to defending their civilian infrastructure and U.S. investment in the Kurdistan region. Are you willing to providing them this support? And if I had this question, tomorrow the United States is going to open and integrate one of the
Can you speak louder?
Yeah, of course.
Is that possible?
Boy,
You're the most gentle, beautiful voice, but you're a very gentle person. Go ahead. Just take fewer words and louder.
Yeah, sure. I will repeat my first question. Last week, the Iraqi militia groups attacked one of the largest gas fields in the Kurdistan region of Iraq, which even the U.S. companies have invested in these gas fields.
Yeah.
And then,
are you from Iraq?
I'm from Kurdistan, Iraqi Kurdistan.
Okay.
Yeah, working for Ruda Media Network. And the Kurdistan region prime minister, he requested the United States to providing them some sort of defense system to defending these gas fields and U.S. investment in the Kurdistan region. Are you willing to helping them?
Well, we're going to look at it. I heard about it, and I'm hearing about it more now, frankly. It wasn't at the top of my list. It's a very unusual question, I think, but I assume you're from the area, and to you it's a very important question, and to me it is also, because people are being killed. I will say this, Iraq has been much different in terms of us than they were prior to us taking out the nuclear capability of Iran. You know, Iran has gone down many, many steps in terms of its fear factor. They were the bully of the Middle East, and they're really not the bully of the Middle East anymore. And Iraq was being bullied by Iran. You know, we had a president that thought it was brilliant to blow them up, and they blew them up, and all of a sudden, instead of having a power that was basically equal to Iran, they had Iran ruling the Middle East for a long period of time. But Iraq, from the day we hit them with those B-2 bombers and knocked out and obliterated, because CNN said, well, maybe it wasn't total obliteration. Well, it turned out it was totally obliteration. It was every single one of those missiles hit its target. It was actually amazing, but it was wiped out, totally wiped out. I will tell you, Iraq has been a much friendlier place. They talk to us. The Prime Minister actually nominated me along with about 78 other countries for the Nobel Prize. I'm the only one that was nominated by almost 100 countries that didn't get it. But that's okay. But I saved a lot of lives. I saved a lot of lives. But Iraq nominated us for the Nobel Prize, and that was a great honor. You know, we didn't expect that from Iraq. Iraq has been a much different place since the taking out of Iran the nuclear capability. Yeah, let's get to another question. Here we go. This guy's a beauty. Go ahead.
Secretary Rubio mentioned your meetings ongoing in Russia today. Do you have any update from Mr. Witkoff and Mr. Kushner?
No, because I've been spending too much time with you. I mean, we're spending a lot of time in here. we wanted to do this you talk about being open and transparent. This has to be the most transparent administration in history. We spent a lot of time answering your questions and giving you a lot of good, good results. I mean, I think everybody here gave you good results. But no, I don't. I will have after I leave here.
But do you hope for a breakthrough, or is it not?
I don't know. Look, I don't know. All I can tell you is that we're trying very hard to save 25 to 30,000 people, mostly men, mostly soldiers, every month. 25,000 to 30,000 soldiers. It's impossible. That's half a stadium. Take a big football stadium. Take half of those people in a stadium, and they're wiped out. They're killed every month. It's crazy. That war is crazy. It would have never happened with me, and it didn't happen for 4 years.
And you just mentioned potential land strikes. Can you elaborate anything on that?
I'll elaborate. If they come in through a certain country or any country, or if we think they're building mills for whether it's fentanyl or cocaine. I hear Colombia, the country of Colombia, is making cocaine. They have cocaine manufacturing plants, okay? And then they sell us their cocaine. We appreciate that very much. But yeah, anybody that's doing that and selling it into our country is subject to attack.
So not necessarily just Venezuela?
No, not just Venezuela, no. Venezuela's been very bad. Venezuela's been really bad in something else, probably worse than most, but a lot of other people do it too. They would send murderers into our country. They would empty their jails into our country. They sent people into our country that we don't want. They sent their drug dealers and their drug people into our country. They sent people from their mental institutions into our country, and we're getting them out. That was bad. That was real bad. And they also sent drugs. Yeah.
On Tim Walz, Mr. President, do you think he should resign over the fraud scandal in his state?
And who should?
Tim Walz, over the fraud scandal in his state.
Look, I think the man's a grossly incompetent man. I thought that from the day I watched J.D. destroy him in the debate. I was saying, who was more incompetent, that man or my man? I had a man and he had a man. They were both incompetent.